What's going on, everybody? Doc and Sloth here, back again. A little bit more Halo Wars 2 action. We're going to be doing some pack openings today. Sloth's got a bunch, I got a bunch. And then we're also going to just talk some basic deck build tips for you guys. This will probably be a little bit more on the season side, just because at this point we're hopefully you guys have been able to jump into the beta, play a little bit, open some packs, and are starting to level up some cards. So hopefully we get some good luck today. Sloth, go ahead and kick us off.
I think technically I have a bundle. You have a bunch,
Yes.
but it's close. It's quite all right. I am hoping for a little bit of everything. Definitely the Siphon Locust, if possible. Did get my Extractor Marines leveled up though,
Nice.
and Ironclad Hunters. I will always take. Unstable Banshee, that will actually really help out. I really like Shipmaster. I've kind of been feeling like he's a little underpowered as of late. But I also got Armored Marines for Anders, so that stuff will really help. It's gotten to the point where having these high level cards for certain leaders is kind of what makes me pick that leader more so than just wanting to use them.
Right.
Also got Eradication for Atriox. That is probably the best thing I could get, other than maybe Atriox is chosen. I'll get one more card towards Boundless Fury getting leveled up for Decimus. I've actually really liked that too. I feel like I need just kind of one little push to get Decimus over the top too. He and Shipmaster are both, they're almost there. Not quite, but they're getting close. Archer Missiles leveled up for Cutter. I also got Shockwave for Atriox. I almost have all of these now.
Nice.
I'll like one of every card just about. So Unstable Banshee again. I will always take stuff for Shipmaster. Get the standard Banshee leveled up.
Which is a decent unit. Decent 60 energy
Yeah.
unit.
Yes. Glassing Beams leveled up for
That's
Shipmaster.
Awesome. That is awesome. That is a great power.
I got double time for Cutter. Gonna be honest, I do not have that in my deck. Not really seen the use of that, honestly, but I will take cards just the same. Upgraded the Jackrabbit, also something I do not use. And lastly, I'll take one more towards leveling up the Prowling Reaver. I've actually completely replaced all the Reavers in my decks with the Prowling Reaver. Why not? I mean, Shield, Cloak, and Detect is pretty fantastic. So I think I will get out of the way and let you go now.
All right, guys. Well, Sloth picking up some good cards there. We're going to go ahead. We got 12 packs to cut through, so hopefully, again, good luck here. Aggressor Sentinels, pretty good. Fronts. Kodiak. I'm hoping to upgrade some Kodiaks, man.
That would be fantastic.
Awesome. And I got the Terror Chopper, something I didn't have before, which is pretty cool. Pretty happy with that.
I've been pretty happy with that when using Decimus, so that's good.
What we got here? Reavers. Always take the Reavers. Marauders, I'm pretty happy with the Marauders too, to be honest. Nice, and I leveled up the Glassing Beam, so both our Shipmaster play pretty good. Archer Missiles, not terrible. And to go here, leveling up the Reaver, leveling up the Locust. Locust is a card we're going to talk about when we get to the deck build side, but something we've seen a lot of people been playing with, and I was kind of short on it at first. And I think, to be honest with you, I think they're a little bit better than I originally expected. Because obviously, playing Halo Wars 1, we see a lot of them come in. They're just simply for destroying buildings, and they're really terrible at destroying regular units. Not so much in this one. And I got the Honor Guard.
I'm so jelly. Man.
I have all of the banished, not Covenant, the banished leaders now. Pretty cool. The only thing we had talked about earlier, Sloth, and I think this still kind of holds true. Atriox is awesome. huge range, can hit anything, good shield. The other two banished leaders are good, but the fact that they can't hit air units, I think, is kind of a it just kind of stinks, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's kind of I think the biggest thing holding them back, just because they're melee units. But I don't know. I feel like Aatrox's Chosen will get a nerf
Yeah,
after this. He has more range we've seen in games than Kodiaks and Blisterbacks, which is just preposterous.
reactive Cyclops, dude. Finally picking it up. I'm super
That
pumped.
and that's
I just got
what
two.
50 energy.
Save pack, I got
Nice.
two. Yes. Uh, and I
Yeah,
upgraded
and
the
that's
Protector
solid.
Sentinel too. That's pretty awesome. I'm super pumped for those. 50 energy. Uh, I've seen them do some pretty good work. Cyclops, I'm a big fan of. Upgrading the Vulture. Now that's huge.
That's it because I mean that's kind of our go-to unit right now, at least on the human side.
Yeah, for the UNSC, that's probably the top end of just about every UNSC deck that gets put out. Captain Cutter just upgraded the Trooper Hornet, which is also very good.
Yeah. That has last stand if you're not familiar. So when that Hornet goes down, you actually get infantry units after the Hornet goes down.
A lot of
Can't
people
beat
don't
that.
expect to, which is nice. Leveling up the Terror Chopper, pick up there. Trooper Warthog, another one, man. I'm getting some
Nice.
good unlocks here. Something else I've been hoping to use too. The Last Stand and the extra units, pretty cool. And Spirit Assault, also something I didn't have. Drops off Banish,
Nice.
pretty cool. For the Shipmaster too, so that might not be a bad power. We're not super sold on the powers. I think I've narrowed it down for me to 2 or 3 that I really enjoy. The rest of them kind of seem okay. Um, always worth giving some of the new ones a try. Teleport, that's a power I will never use. 2 packs left here. A lot of banished. This one, some good level ups though, to be honest. Vortex, all right, cool. And Boundless Fury. All right, I still don't. Out of all of these packs that I have opened, I don't have a single Spartan. I would really like one.
Dang. That's rough.
Shockwave, new card, front mob. This is advanced optic. Wow. All right, very much luck of the draw here, folks. 100%. As you guys can see, I'm pretty much, I think I only have one common card, just a few uncommons, rares, and then about 50% of the legendaries left to open, which is pretty good. I think overall I've opened just above 25 packs. We're just going to jump into the deck build portion here. Again, Aatrox has probably been my favorite. Sloth, I know you've been talking Shipmaster for the Banish side, and I'm a huge Anders fan, but Isabel's definitely been growing on me too, mostly because of the Mac Blast.
Yeah, after that last video we did, I was lucky enough. I think I leveled up my Mac Blast and I got, I can't remember which Spartan Isabel got, Alice perhaps. I was super excited and just decided to use her. I was really actually very happy with Isabel after that. I don't know, she has a few tricks up her sleeve that I've actually started to use a little bit more to my advantage, like Ghost in the Machine,
Right.
to momentarily take control of enemy units. I think we played one game where I had Alice jack a Scorpion, and I used Ghost in the Machine to jack a Locust.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I have my army attacking, I took out probably a quarter of their army, 2 of their really strong units, and turned them on
Yep.
the rest of that guy's units. So she has kind of these quick things. Her and Atriox both share the ability to drop mines
Mm-hmm.
that are actually cloaked for the first 90 seconds they're on the field. So if we've got a big group of enemies coming, say they're coming to Bravo, I might just drop them and back out. Because it's 40 energy to drop those mines,
Right.
which is, I mean, that's nothing, especially when you get towards later game. So just kind of dropping those mines and then moving around is actually really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. As far as deck building tips, again, having gotten into this game and played it a little bit, I think we're getting obviously pretty familiar. One thing I don't think we've ever really shown, or at least I haven't shown, the ability, once you come in to edit your deck, simply pressing Y changes your army. Every leader has two different armies that they can set up. Obviously, depending a little bit on playstyle, what units you're familiar with. As far as Atriox is concerned, I always run Bulletproof because he gets those elites. He gets the Ironclad Hunters, which are just awesome, and then two mobs Grunts. Makes for a pretty formidable starting army, easy to split off, grab energy, while also doing pretty well to hold a point too, especially against UNSC if they're running like three Warthogs or a lot of ground-based troops, because those hunters can really tear them apart.
Yeah,
But
and taking a look at, I've just kind of been peeking around at the card library. I don't think we've touched on it before. Quite a few of the cards, I don't have any of them unlocked. I don't think I'll get any of them because I think they're a tease, maybe a troll. Leader Restriction, Sergeant Forge.
right,
So we're trying to figure out if they're kind of trolling us, kind of messing around, maybe an Easter egg, or if Sergeant Forge is going to kind of be kind of one of those cameo type appearances. But I didn't want to forget about that.
right.
I wanted to bring that up because I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. I just actually hopped over into the card library to show leader restriction with Sergeant Forge at the bottom for Pelican transport. This actually brings up probably a perfect way, instead of talking specific to deck build, just talking kind of through the cards. Um, a lot of what you want to base your deck around is having the ability to do that quick energy grab. So personally for me on the banish side, running choppers and running ghosts, Shipmaster's the best for this. And we've talked about this in previous videos, but having those two quick 20 and 30 energy drop units um, are a great way to drop them in on your base, or even back somewhere where you know they're going to be safe, to have them easily go run and grab energy. And honestly, once you've grabbed an energy, unless you really need those units to go and attack, just leave them out at those spots or move them to another energy location to be able to pick up that next set of energy that's going to be dropping in. Elite Rangers are also real good. Cyclops I've used to grab energy before, um, but because they are so good against the vehicles, they're almost better fighting up front, to be really honest.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
absolutely.
Jackrabbit's okay. Usually keep that in there as well. Just because again it's a 20 drop unit, it's fast. It can grab the energy pretty quick, and it can actually move across the map relatively fast, which makes for easy actual point grabs when somebody kind of pushes their whole army. As we kind of look to the next page, hunters is something I always recommend having in, just again because they are so awesome against taking down vehicles. Assault elites, Sloth, I know you're a big fan of these because of that rush mechanic and the detect mechanic
Yeah.
too, which is kind of, I think, slightly underrated, to be really honest, especially as people start to really get into this game and realize that cloaked units when they come in, if you're not paying attention or it's just kind of sitting on a point, and you're just like, oh, I'm gonna roll in there, and you don't really look too hard. Next thing you know, you've lost like 3 units, and you're like, what the heck happened? Oh, that's probably because they had a cloaked unit, right?
The other frustrating thing with that is to know that they're there, but to be unable to do anything about it.
Right.
There's been a few games where we kind of rush B and C, and I rush C, and I can kind of see the shimmer in the outline of a Marauder because the other guy has Shipmaster, and I know I can't attack him. So I just have to pull out, or he's just going to sit there and wail on my unit for free.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Another thing that we talk about, that's both 50 energy Anybody can grab them. For the Banish side is the Engineer, and then for the UNSC side is the Nightingale. One distinct difference that we've noticed over playing these last couple days, the Nightingale will not heal air units. It has the ability to cloak, so technically it has an additional ability that the Engineer does not. So it can pull your units out of combat for a few seconds, which is nice. And I've seen some people use it really effectively to kind of like stall on a point. They'll move a small army in with a Nightingale. They're starting to get hit a little bit. They'll drop that cloak, and then that point's still contested because the enemies are there, but you can't do anything about it. But the Engineer having the capability to heal all units, air or ground, I think makes the Banished have a slightly better support unit in their Engineer than the UNSC, in my opinion at least.
Yeah, and that's not to forget either that the engineer has its Y ability is overshield and it casts a temporary shield to protect nearby allied units.
Right.
And it's a big area too, so I think that gets forgotten a lot, but especially if there's going to be a big fight and it's going to be kind of two armies going together, I usually try to get my engineer and hit Y on him to get that shield set, because that just helps out that much more.
Right. Right. So, again, both good support units. Highly recommend having both, not only for the healing ability, but also again hitting on the detectability. Can't go away from that too much. One thing I haven't been super impressed with. Played around with the Extractor Marines. Played around with the Sniper as well. Um, not hugely beneficial, in my opinion at least, for the energy cost. And I think that might be something that they look at as far as how much damage they're able to do and how beneficial they are. For instance, the Sniper coming in, yeah, he's great. He can kind of pick units off a little bit from a distance. But if they have a detect unit or even an Engineer and they roll a unit over with that, they're probably killing them. So just something to kind of consider.
Yeah, and I think that's, in my opinion, Creative Assembly looking at this, hopefully will kind of change the way some things are cloaked as well,
Right.
because looking at the Sniper, it says that they are cloaked for the first 90 seconds. Uh, I feel like since the snipers can only attack infantry units, they cannot even attack vehicles or air. Uh, they should have permanent cloak. It
Right.
just makes sense. They're snipers. To me, it would make way more sense if they had kind of a perma cloak,
Right.
but they don't, and that's kind of strange to me. And that may offer some more viability to that unit if it did have that, because I was the same. I tried the Sniper. I thought, oh, that'll be a cool idea for choke points if they're using kind of big infantry based armies. I abandoned that real quick.
Right. The one thing I'm super psyched, as you guys saw open up in the packs, is to be able to use these reactive Cyclops. Again, great unit for taking out vehicles, and the fact of reflect and how much damage it's actually kicking back, it is really good. I've gotten torn up by these a few times, so I'm pretty excited to drop in. And 50 energy compared to the original 30 energy, I think is totally worth the extra 20 when it compares to Cyclops. And honestly, I would run them both, and probably will in most decks, just because of how good these units seem to be. And then another card, again, we kind of talked about. I haven't seen so many regular Locusts, but the Blood Fuel Locust for 60 energy, the fact that it has Siphon and it has that shield, is a unit I've been seeing a lot. And I don't
Hmm.
necessarily think, and we've talked about this off camera a little bit, Sloth, but I think it's more so the fact of this unit siphons. It does have a shield, and it has a lot of health. I don't think its
And
damage
the
out
range.
right, and its huge range. I don't think its damage output is necessarily great, but you get two or three of these things down, and you put them up on a ledge between, B and C, and they're probably dealing some pretty good damage. You throw a blister back or a Kodiak, if you're your partner's playing UNSC down. And that's a pretty formidable force, specifically because these things can hit everything too. Um, so
Yeah.
a unit I think we need to start messing around with, and I think I'm going to try putting in there just to see, uh, how good they really are.
Yeah, and I think again that's another unit that I think we're gonna see nerfed after this whole beta issue,
Right,
or after the beta runs its course. Pardon me,
right,
words are hard. I think that is one that we're gonna kind of see changed a little bit. Its damage output, like you said, is not fantastic. I'm not really worried about that, but I think the overall health could be dipped down
sure,
and make that a much more balanced unit.
right. And range, maybe take a little range off. And again,
Yeah,
if it goes back to being a straight building killer, um, I mean that's fine for the standard game. For the blitz mode, doesn't really make too much sense. Obviously, grabbing energy pods,
yeah.
that's beneficial, but I don't know if I would want a single locust being the only unit I'm worried about. I'd rather have a warthog, which is going to move almost twice as fast than those things, be able to get to the energy. Um, so, um, and as we kind of just flip through here, again, jackrabbits haven't been something that we've been, um, super super happy with, to be really honest. The wild jackrabbit, I have it in my deck. I use it. The blast ability to me, I think needs to actually get buffed a little bit. I've never seen a blast unit like destroy another unit, at least that I've been paying attention to. And especially on the jackrabbit, it seems like one of those units where that unit to me is meant to go move around the battlefield quickly and probably not engage in a huge fight because I think it only has like 2 health bars. Um, so not something I want to like. I'm dropping down 60 energy for. I rather have, you know, hunters or a sentinel or a hornet for a couple extra energy.
I mean, even a warthog.
Right.
At least a warthog is going to be super effective against uh, infantry units, and it's going to be neutral against other vehicle and aircraft. Whereas the jackrabbit is going to be neutral against infantry and vehicles, and bad against aircraft.
Right.
So it just I struggle to see why I would pick like a wild jackrabbit over a warthog.
Right. Unless you need it to fill the deck, obviously. Um, Again, having those fast units isn't terrible. I think we've hit on enough Ironclad Hunters. They're awesome if you have them, even if they're the base level one. Put them in your deck because they absolutely mow down vehicles. And then the Sentinel side for Anders is really awesome. I've seen, you know, Sentinel armies, specifically Protector Sentinels, come in and really deal quite a bit of damage. Um, and most of hers are pretty cheap too, which is pretty nice. You can build up a pretty quick Sentinel army. They don't have a huge amount of health, um, but a lot of them do deal some pretty good damage.
Yeah, I actually started using her Sentinel Swarm starting army. The only thing that's frustrating is the inability to scoop up energy. So I think I'm gonna pay close attention to her and try to maybe right off the bat when we're going to take points, if I don't have an Extractor Marine or Reactive Cyclops there available, which are my two lowest infantry units or ground units for the Professor, maybe try cycling those cards. I don't think I cycle cards fast enough
Right.
or enough. I kind of forget that that's an option. So that I think would kind of help increase the viability of that because those Sentinels, especially having the one protector and like the 3 or 4 aggressors, is really a good way to spit out a ton of damage right at the beginning of the
Oh
game.
yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. I've actually been very impressed as we're kind of moving through with the guard ability and the armored units, specifically the Warthog. Um, takes Can absorb a pretty good amount of damage. Warthogs are pretty decent in a fight too, and the fact that they can move so quickly makes them a really all-around good unit. I never get upset dropping an armored Warthog onto the battlefield. Um, and when we're in this kind of category of about 90 energy, Armored Warthog, the Prowling Reaver, uh, Sloth, I know you're a pretty big fan of the Spike Turret just for the maximum amount of health that it has. It takes a lot of bullets
Yeah.
and absorbs a
Yeah.
lot of damage. Kodiak in the hundreds, and then uh, again, we're not super, pumped for the powers, but a few of them are exceptional. One of those being the glassing beam, which I think is probably the lowest of the powers that can deal like a really significant amount of damage. Um, Now it is, I won't say it's easy to move out of the way of, but it can be dodged a little bit because it does move kind of slower than most units. But when it first drops in, you're usually killing 2 or 3 units in the first couple seconds, and then probably picking up something else, especially if they're not really paying attention. So that's definitely among my favorites, and I'm glad I leveled it up with these packs today.
Yeah. Yeah, that's if you got a level one up, that's a good one to do.
Kind of hopping over. Again, I think a lot of this is self-explanatory here. Uh, Marauder War Chief, Sloth, you can talk a little bit about this one because I actually haven't had a chance to use it yet.
Yeah, he's one that I really appreciated being able to put out onto the battlefield early in the game, because he does have that rally ability, which inspires nearby troops and helps them do increased damage. So I like to start with Decimus with the Vampire Army. So that's 4 units of Siphon Grunts and then a Shock Chopper.
Yep.
And having all 5 of those units dealing increased damage is super helpful. And especially when you consider the fact that those grunts are also getting half the damage that they dealt back as restorative health. So like that to me is a really great combo if you can rush to 110 energy and get him out on the field if you're lucky enough to get him in your hand.
Right.
But he's one that I try to keep him sort of in the back of the fight. Don't necessarily want him there because I just want him alive so that he increases everyone else's damage output.
Right. And the nice thing that we were talking about the Marauders, I'm a big fan of the Prowling Marauder, the fact that it can cloak, kind of similar to the Stealth Kodiak, although different units. That cloaking ability, again, super beneficial and surprises a lot of people. But the Marauders are really nice because they have a like an energy beam, small, short distance attack, but then they also have missiles, so it gives them a pretty decent range. And they're actually capable of shooting like up onto the ledges while still being down on a point, which is beneficial because a lot of units at that point you might have to move or start to have them go up the side in order to engage units on the top. These guys can actually have some pretty decent range, so I think that makes them a little bit more beneficial than some other units. Um, we've talked a lot in other videos about how good blisterbacks and the Kodiaks are. Um, all versions of the blisterback and the Kodiak are awesome. Again, the stealth one, super neat because the cloak ability, so it's dropping in and it's probably getting quite a few shots off. And then same thing with the blisterback, and then during blisterback, having that last stand and dropping extra units. Again, a lot of people don't see that. Sometimes they move in to just hit the blisterback specifically once it's locked down. And then when the thing drops a couple extra units, they probably span their camera away, and those units are, picking off something else or at least dealing some good damage before somebody else notices. So last stand,
No,
big fan of that.
no problem. No problem with being cheeky.
Yeah.
There's no shame in that.
Not at all. Not at all. Something I wish I had as we get towards the last end of these pages is this Ironclad Wraith. I've seen some people have it. I would love to use it. Again, the guard ability is awesome, soaking up that extra damage. I want to see what this Scorch Mortar does, because your standard Wraith doesn't come with a Y ability. So I really wish I could unlock that. Hopefully, we'll get some more packs here and can get that opened up. Trooper Warthog is something I'm super excited to use. And this page 7 is probably the last real viable page where a lot of people have the majority of these. But this is a lot of the top end. And honestly, in my opinion, the units, the Wraith, the Warthog, the Vulture, the Blisterback, if you're lucky enough to get a lockdown Scorpion, those need to be in your deck, hands down. You got to have a top end. For the UNSC, for me, a lot of times it's just the Vulture. Um, and for the Banish side, the Enduring Blisterback really kind of takes that slot as well. Um, and I think that's really what's helped us be successful in the late game, specifically with our focus of energy gathering at the beginning, because then we can start dropping a lot of these higher health, higher damage units with a lot more consistency, and it's just hard to deal with.
Yeah, it just kind of becomes overwhelming at a certain point, especially when you're able to consistently pull in the second half of the game. You're consistently able to pull a vulture and or an enduring blister back time after time.
Right.
Um, that just that is pretty much the best deterrent you can have, I think, for them not wanting to attack that specific point that you're on, but knowing that they'll lose if they don't. So, kind of put them in between a rock and a hard place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll talk again real quick on powers. I'm a huge fan of the Mac Blast. I've used close air support, so if you're rocking that is good. That circle area, those Pelican gunships do deal a lot of damage. People just do not see the Mac Blast coming, and I've gotten like Kilimanjaros out of this thing before, just because everybody keeps their units grouped up. That's how this RTS runs. That's kind of the mechanics of it. A lot of people are selecting group units, and they all move the same speed of whatever the slowest unit is. So it's easy to target in the middle of a Scorpion with, while they've got a bunch of other units around it because they're all moving the same speed. Mac Blast comes in and really does a lot of damage. So
and there's no yeah, and there's no time to see it and move.
Right.
You kind of talked about the glassing beam. They can kind of move out of it. Even eradication. I think the last game we played, enemy used eradication with Atriox.
Yep.
And you actually had an Atriox chosen yourself. Yep. You just ran out of it.
Yep.
Before they closed in, because those beams, they start in a big circle and they close down, and when those beams come together in the middle, there's a gigantic explosion and it does a ton of damage.
Right.
But you were able to just simply run your unit out of there and he was okay, and we had time to heal him up before the next battle.
Yep.
So I think that's one of the other things that makes the Mac Blast awesome, is there's no warning. I mean, they get kind of crosshairs on the ground, but I mean, it's like 1,000, 2,000
background.
3 tons of tungsten hitting the ground.
Yep.
It's really impressive.
Yep. Absolutely. If you have eradication, though, honestly, for the Banish side, probably one of the better abilities I've seen, and it does deal a huge amount of damage, specifically like Slaw said, when those rings, when that ring closes and comes together. So very good. It's about the size of a standard point. Same thing with the close air support. I think it surrounds just about the entire point, which is good. That makes logical sense to me, that you would basically smoke out that point. And a lot of people I see use them on the points specifically to defend. I'm a big fan of using Mac rounds, sending a unit in, as they're trying to push their army towards you, because then that makes them completely almost not want to do that, because you probably killed half the units and damaged half of the other ones, depending on what they have in it.
Yeah, so you essentially trade a warthog for half of their army.
Right.
And I've seen you do it. You send your warthog into this army that's been amassed and it's moving towards us. And when the warthog gets there, everybody stops to fire at it. And as soon as they stop to fire at it, you've already got your Mac kind of dialed in. You have line of sight because your warthog's there, and then you just bring the pain, and it's awesome.
Absolutely. And so this last page, if you have any of these cards, put them in your deck 100%. Lost a big fan of Ghost of the Machine. I think that's the only one on this page that's not a legendary. But if you're rocking a Spartan or any of the banished heroes, throw them in there. I'm not a huge fan of Condor Strike or Scarab Assault. It can change the tide of the battle, but only in my opinion, and from what we've seen playing games together, really late in the game, like really late in the game, because a lot of times what people do is they'll call both of those in. They last for about, I don't know, 30 seconds, would you say, Sloth, or so. They'll,
Roughly, yeah, that'd be my guess.
right, they'll kill some units. They'll probably take a point, but then they explode and you've wasted 300 energy. And half the time, when I see those drop in, I just all units or local units, and I just pull them out. And I'll lose
Yeah.
two or three,
And
but the majority of them stay alive.
yeah, and they're usually not, they're so big, they're usually not fast enough to move, say, from B over to C. And even if they are, we're just kind of doing that dancing game that we've talked about before. They drop it on B, we're moving everybody we have to A and C
Right.
just to get out of there.
Right.
And my favorite thing that I found that's been super effective is as shipmaster, you have the cloaking ability. I'll drop my cloaking field down even on B, and I'll take as many of our units as I can, and I'll cloak them. Scarab can no longer see them. We bounce everybody out to the other points, and when the Scarab moves, say, from B to C, we still have B, because my 100 energy card completely canceled out their 300 energy card.
Right.
So I'm not super big on those two cards either. We kind of talked about I've got 300 for a Condor Strike, or I've got 240 for Alice. I think Alice is going to have a much bigger impact on the game, especially if I can get her early game, because she's not a temporary unit.
100%.
And I'm constantly reflecting damage back, and I'm jacking enemy vehicles, and it's just I feel like there's better things to do with your energy.
Right. I agree 100%. I'm still a little salty looking at this page. I've got 3 Spartans grayed out, and I know you have all of them. But I am happy to say
But
that
I don't.
I do have the banished leaders, so that is good. And I do have Atriox,
Yeah. So.
and he's awesome.
Oh, yeah. He's easily, I think, the best unit in the beta right now. So all this tells me is I need to be UNSC and you need to be banished, because you have all the banished and I have all the UNSC.
100%. So that we'll kind of wrap it up here, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the pack opening, and hopefully you enjoyed us just talking through kind of card comparison. I know we kind of talked we're going to do a little bit of deck building, but I think we've done deck building before, so if you haven't checked that video out, go ahead and check it out under our Halo Wars 2 playlist. But hopefully you enjoyed the card comparison and kind of us talking about what units we see being a little bit better, what units we see being a little bit worse. So kind of give you a better sense of how to kind of structure your deck. Again, we're going to have a lot more Halo Wars 2 gameplay coming at you this whole week, running through the 30th. If you haven't hopped into the beta, get on your Xbox, download it, give it a try. Let us know what you think. If you enjoyed this video, throw a like, throw a comment. Please subscribe. It helps us out as we're kind of getting this channel up and rolling. Sloth, any parting words?
Please do let us know if you kind of have some different experiences with the certain units. We've put a decent amount of time into this beta, but it is still a beta, and we'd love to hear from people that are probably a lot smarter than us. So have some different experiences with some of these units, and I mean even some kind of deck builds and stuff. Let us know. I'd love to hear about it, and as well as any thoughts on Forge. If he's going to be tied into the story, somehow he lived through Halo Wars 1, or if he's just a straight cameo and multiplayer, or if they're just trolling us. I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah.
So let us know that too. Thanks for watching.
For sure. And hey, maybe you never know. Maybe we'll get a banished, or we'll actually get a real Covenant leader too. You never know. You never know.
That would be neat, actually. I would think that.
That would be pretty cool. All right, guys. I'm Doc. That's been Sloth. Average Gamer, guys. Thanks for checking us out. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.